Hello, welcome to episode 147 in this series where I am programming an NES game live on Twitch from scratch. It's been a long time, or it feels like it's been a long time. So the delays have been mostly related to I was on call for work in my previous job. There weren't enough of us to really designate who was on call. Like, we had support staff who were responsible for customer support, and they were on call. They alternated, but as a developer, when there's only two of you on the team, uh, you're kind of always on call. And so with the new job, we have an on-call schedule, and developers are expected to rotate around, and they have a list. And so it was my turn for the last 2 weeks, and it's been interesting. I've been with the company for about almost 6 months now. Still learning stuff, so it's a little bit tough when you're still new and still learning things about the product, and you have to answer questions and provide solutions to people who have been using the product longer than you have. I forgot about what that feeling was like, because the previous job I was at, I'd been there for about 8 years. So it's been a while since I've had to do that. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. My point was that the issue was that after a day of dealing with on-call support, it's a little hard to want to come back to the computer and do this. But here we are, because it's been too long, and I really, really want to work on this some more. So let's do that. On my tweet earlier, when I said we were going to be doing this on the Tuesday instead of the Monday, I said I wanted to mess with the scrolling speed, and that's because in the beginning of level 1, I envision that the ship is going to be exiting some sort of hangar or hidden entrance somewhere, and so the camera will be scrolling faster than it has been in most of the episodes we've had for the last year or so, because I've had it running at this relatively slow speed, which means that it's easier to work with, especially if the map is not particularly long. And that was kind of the goal, was to work with a map that wasn't super long, but could be used for testing purposes. Those palette changes, by the way, are expected. If you didn't tune into the last few episodes, I implemented in the map the ability to change our palettes. It swaps the palettes during traversing the map, and it does that at runtime based on objects that are on the map, which is pretty cool. I'm not sure what that's all about. So, and we did that by adding some stuff to the NMI handling routine, where we check to see if we're in the game state where we are processing the game. We check if we should be reloading the palette, and if we are, then we actually loop through this new palette array of bytes and replace the appropriate location with the new palette. And right now it's only doing it for palette 0. We'll have to fix that at some point, but it was important to do as a proof of concept to show that it actually worked, because I figured it would, but sometimes you never know. When we initially ran that code that I wrote, what happened was it it swapped, or it tried to swap the palette, but it was in the middle of drawing the screen, and so that created a weird artifact where it looked like it was actually updating the name table or something to that effect. I'm not even 100% sure what it was doing. It just looked weird after that, which is not what we wanted. So we had to switch to doing that during the NMI, which is fine for now. I mean, ultimately, it would be nice to be able to do mid-screen palette refreshes, but it's not. I don't know that we care about that right now. So let's run that. I just want to run tiled so we have it in case we need to change anything on the map. I do want to get rid of the. I do want to get rid of the palette changes for now because they're distracting. Actually, you know what? I'm going to leave them. I was going to get rid of them, but we're going to leave them because we want to test to make sure that increasing the speed does not break the palette swaps. So just the refresher here, changing the palette is done through this object on the map, and we have our palette colors here. It says which palette we want to update and the colors we're updating to. So and then those are our spawn points for the enemies. Okay, so in changing the scrolling for the background, there are a few things to consider. One is that I believe that we are scrolling based on, or we are, I'm almost 100% sure we're spawning based on the Y of the object matching exactly with the Y of the camera. So what that means is if we're using a single scroll, if we're not incrementing, or if we're not moving by 1 pixel, then we have the possibility that we will skip the spawn points. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to change it so that we check to see if the next object is either greater than or equal to our current Y position, because we know we're only checking for 1. So the way it works right now is we're not checking to see if we're spawning by spawning every single, checking everything on the map, because that's pointless. Instead, what we have is we have an ordered list of the points that are spawned on the map. We pre-sort that by the Y position on the map here, and we then check to see if the Y value matches for the next one in the list. So this is the first one on the list, then the second one, the third one, right? So that saves us a lot of time because we don't have to do any crazy checking or comparing or anything where we have to figure out which one we're checking next. We just simply know this is the next one, and then when this spawns, this is the next one, and when this spawns, this is the next thing, and we just keep doing that. Very simple. I don't know if I learned about that somewhere or I made that up. I'm sure other people have used it. I'm not saying like I invented that technique or something like that, but I've been using that process for other things for a long time. In fact, I was using a similar technique for when we were doing a Game Boy Advance prototype where things were moving around on the screen, and so what it would do is it would keep a sorted list of sprites in memory, and as the sprite moved, it compared against its neighbors until it was properly back in sorted order, because there was no reason to check otherwise, and then that allowed it to draw properly where things overlapped, because like in an RPG, for example, you have your player and it moves in front of an NPC, it's got to cover it, and without doing the sorting there, you might end up with the NPC in front of the player, which is not what you want. So that was how I was doing that, and so this kind of a natural extension of just only checking the things you need to check. Especially with a limited CPU like this, you want to, try and keep yourself checking the minimal things. But the problem is that because we're checking exactly this Y value, we're scrolling up, we're going to miss some of these things. So let's start with the naive approach here of just scrolling. The other thing we have to keep in mind is that I believe we only load the new row based on when we hit a certain point on the tile. So we have to make sure that we're using a factor of 2 for our scrolling, because if we don't, it can be 1, 2, 4, or 8. Because if we don't do that, then it won't load the next row. Again, something probably we might want to look into. For something like this, we can say, okay, is this thing equal to or greater than? And if it's greater than, we spawn it and we move to the next object. That one's relatively simple. Let's see where we're actually doing. All right, so we're increment camera counter speed. So we're only incrementing every 8 cycles, every 8 frames. We could speed that up, right? We could speed that up and that would smooth out some of the scrolling without doing anything crazy. Let's see how that looks. So you can see there, it's had some. Okay, so that's funny how that affected it. It's because part of the issue is that it's scrolling those enemies faster, or at the same speed as the background is moving, and then the other issue is the ship is not moving fast enough to keep up with the background. So that's something we need to consider as well. That worked fine. That's interesting. So that actually, maybe that's all we have to do to, because that was pretty fast. I'm gonna delete these palette changes only because I don't actually see a reason that we need to keep them in for now for what we're doing. What I do want to do is I want to keep adding these little wavelets in because that will help us gauge how we're moving on the map. It's a if you just have a solid blue background, you can't really see the motion. Oops, I don't want to do that because that will create a new meta tile. All right, so I've saved that, and then yes, asset tool. At some point in a future stream soon, we will work on creating a task that does this automatically, so I don't have to go to the command prompt, and then I can do like what I'm doing here with make and running the game directly from Visual Studio Code. I just wanted to restart Messin just in case. All right, we do have that black bar. That's clearly, I don't know what that's all about. We'll have to look at what that's all about. We have to check the black bar. That's a really good speed. I don't know that we would need it to be that much faster. I think we can even make it faster by just making it 0. Let's see. Oops. why is that? Is that because it never... It's going to count every 255 frames? Okay, yeah, so that was actually the fastest it was going to be. Alright, that makes sense. I couldn't remember what the logic looked like there. It didn't really matter. Alright, so there's that. And then this is just literally doing a single decrement. We could, if we really wanted to speed it up, we'll do that. Let's see what that looks like and what that breaks. Your guess is as good as mine. Okay, so we're not exactly loading. So we're scrolling too fast, or no, actually, it's not. We are scrolling too fast, but it's not. The issue is not that it's scrolling too fast for to actually update. It should be able to update at that speed. The issue is with the scrolling code that it is not. I think it's not hitting the load points in the where it knows to load the next row properly. Let's take a look at the name table. I also have to look at why changing the speed messes with the player sprite, but we'll look at that in a minute. It's not as important right now as looking at the scrolling. I don't want to see those updates. I just want to see... It looks like it's keeping up with it just fine, but I would love to know why. Oh, and then we crashed. Okay, and oh, we didn't crash. This is normal because the repeat scroll is broken for the 16 by 16 meta tile change that we did. So the attributes are wrong, and then as a result of some problems with that, it's not loading offset correctly. So these are still things we got to fix. But all right, so that's, I mean, it's not perfect obviously, but it's working. I wonder if we're also off by... It's funny to me that by changing the camera scroll counter... Oh, you know what? I bet I know why that's happening. It's probably because we never actually hit the point at which we would load the row, because we don't count, we don't skip one frame. Yeah, see, now that worked. Why is the player sprite flickering like that? Looks like it's some sort of bug in the logic that's handling the cycling through the hardware sprites, and we're somehow missing a hardware sprite, and it's causing that flicker. Oh, that's interesting. Doesn't seem to happen until what? Until we have too many things on the screen? Or too many sprites, and then... Yeah, so we have too many sprites, and then that seems to break the code. Okay. These are all good things to learn. Because normally what was happening was the scroll was so slow, those enemies were not on the screen at the same time, right? So let's do this. I don't have something. Right. So let's see. The first thing is too many sprites active causes player sprite flicker glitch. Not waiting at least one frame before updating the screen causes a skip in the a missed row in the background tiles. Is this selective word wrap? Oh, I do have a to-do notes. Let's add it to this instead of creating a new one. I don't think this one is true anymore. We'll have to look at that. Export it's not probably flicker or the change of view bound versus total. Okay. Add a spawn point in the map not directly tied to a single sprite type. That is, I think, done. Okay, so those are the things right now that we need to look into. So let's start with if we make it move one pixel every frame, then what's happening is scroll Y is being decremented. Before we factor in that, we need to load the tile. So if it's FF, branch if not equal, otherwise load, blah, 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 blah. So what we can do, sort of as a kludgy basic hack to this logic, is force row load. This is used to force the row to be loaded when scrolling is fast and we're just starting. So decrement scroll Y. Alright, so this is the game play state here. So what we would want to do is, coming in from the initialization from the title screen, let's see, load new game state. Let's load a camera counter speed, compare it to 1, and then branch if not equal to, we're going to skip this. Load a force, no, load a increment force row load. So basically, check to see if the camera counter speed is fast. If it is, then force the initial row load, or we'll have a blank first row off screen. So we've got our force row load there. We're just incrementing it from 0 to 1. So let's see, we load it, we compare it to FF. Let's do this. Load a force row load branch if not equal to branch if not equal to this. So if it's if it's, no, sorry. Yeah. Well, I want to set it to 0. If it's equal, then we want to just skip right to update row. Otherwise, we want to check to actually see, right? And then we'll add this wasteful but necessary initialization for the force row load, just to make sure that we don't do it again. So if row load is not 0, then we're just gonna jump right to update row load here and then clear that out. If it isn't, then we will check the scroll and compare it to FF, and then if it's not equal, we will jump past here. Otherwise, we'll fall into the same code. Yes, I think that will fix that problem. Let's just make sure that this is actually set to 1. It is. Okay. Let's reload the ROM. Let's see if that fixed it. No, it did not. Why? Let's make sure I built it and actually ran it. Eh. Can't type. Task. Run. Thank you. No. Okay. So let's go back to the debugger. Let's go to our source. Let's make sure that we are actually incrementing that, which we should be. Okay, so camera speed is 1, so force so that's equal to 1 now. So then if we go to this, oh, I guess we don't want to decrement this value. That's actually, that's interesting. So why would that? It's actually the opposite of what I was thinking. The camera counter being a non-1 value means that we show the map with the camera being at 0, the scroll being at 0, and then the next time around it becomes FF. So it's actually, let's take a step back here for a second and walk through this, because I'm actually surprised that this didn't work, but I guess I really didn't think it through too carefully. I thought I knew what it was doing. Get rid of that. So the rest of this stuff can stay. I guess we'll comment this out too, just in case. Okay. Hope everybody is having a good night out there. Or good morning, depending on what part of the world you're in at the moment. Alright, so let's reload this. Should I close that? There we go. So, okay, this is unnecessarily resetting it, but it's okay. Let's just see what this does. So we are decrementing scroll Y. and it's 0. Right, because we wanted it to be 0 for the first time. But why doesn't that then... So we have this row. What? Oh, because... Okay, so that's only going to be when the screen scrolls all the way around. So I'm updating the wrong thing. That's why. That makes sense that that's why it didn't actually fix anything. So what... Check if camera hit Y position 0, switch to repeat scroll. Oh, okay, so we're just doing the swap of the position here. Sorry, I'm just getting my screen is lighting up with notifications. Let me put this away so I'm not distracted by it. I have to do that at work too because sometimes it's impossible to focus otherwise. Oh, dog, be quiet. I don't know what he thinks he hears. Give me a second. I'll be right back. Sorry. All right, sorry, I'm back. He's this tiny little 15-pound dog. I don't know who he thinks he's protecting us from. All right. So where is it actually doing? Proceed with map render, repeat scroll, scroll mode, set up new role, load, end it with that. Branch if equal, skip row process. So if oh, that's repeat scroll. Load new tile row. Process repeat scroll. Process single tile. Is this it? No. Oops. Oh, populate single tile. Okay. Is this still scroll mode? Repeat. Okay, yeah. So this is that. Scroll counter. All right, so let's restart the game. So we have the level is loaded. And scroll counter is 7. So we check the enemy index object. We're done with objects, right? Okay, so so we're done with the objects. We're checking the scroll counter to see if it's 8. And then it's incrementing the meta tile subrow. Did it actually add another row on there? No, so what happened is we failed to load that row at the top and then continued to scroll anyway. So why is that? Scroll counter's at 7. And then let's go here. We're done with the objects. Loads the scroll counter. It is 8. So it's equal. So we're going to increment that, and then we're going to initialize scroll counter. And then we're going to take the tile Y, which would be the next set of tiles. Check if we've subtracted 2 from 0. We have, so we do that. So we're, oh, I wonder if it's, you know what we could do to check? I wonder if we're just overwriting this row and then skipping this row and then writing this next one. So let's see, what is the position of that? That's 32 tiles, right? It's 30 tiles. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So that's 20. So, right? I lose it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then 22, 24, 26, 20. 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. Let's just put a few. Is it too many? It's probably too many. Let's save that. Let's re-export. I want to see if it's updating this by overwriting this row first and then skipping. That's probably what's happening. And it probably doesn't happen. Well, let's just see. Although I guess I probably could have let the emulator show me that by just keeping the tile updates on, huh? Well, whatever. It's alright. That didn't take that much time to swap. Okay. So that updated that. So now what? Did it do it again, or what did it do? I don't know. I can't see because reload the ROM. So in the map, it's gonna have it should have either that it had it or it didn't. Let's go slow here with the load initially to see what happens. Wait, go back. Too fast. So it looks like what happened? Did it pause the game? Oh, it did. So it's actually updating a row ahead. Like the attributes are updating at the right time, but the tile row is updating one row ahead of schedule. And you can see that by the fact that sometimes the row will have the wrong color until we actually scroll onto it. Well, but then if that were true, no, I guess that's not technically true. It looked like that at first. Let's double check that. So it doesn't overwrite the row at the top, but it does overwrite the row. Yeah, so it did do what I said, which is that it wrote the row, which is off screen, even though the scroll, I mean it's actually not off screen. It's just being clipped. If we go to the overscan here, we have overscan turned on. Let's turn it off. You'll see that it doesn't look good now because the overscan is hiding the fact that it's off by a row, where this wasn't happening before, I don't believe. So if we change, let's go to this, let's change the camera counter speed to 2. I believe this is no longer a problem and it looks fine with the overscan. Yeah, and that's because now we're updating it at the same exact time as the scroll hits it. So it's clearly down to the fact that we are forcing the update to the Y position the first thing that it does. So we have to figure out why it doesn't like that. Because I do want it to be at that speed. I may want it to be even faster, but let's kind of walk through this and look at what might be at play here. We increment the scroll counter. It starts off at 7. So it's going to go right to 8. And And then there are no objects to process, so we go to done with objects. We load 0 and we store in the meta tile flag. We load the scroll counter, it's 8 immediately, which means we're going to increment the meta tile sub row, which is the position within the 16 by 16 meta tile, because we start at the bottom. If you're looking at the 2 by 2, we've talked about this a bunch before, but if you're looking at the go away. If you're looking at this, right, this is 16 by 16 or 2 by 2. We start with this one, and then we've got to go to that one. So, but the fact that we're doing that immediately seems to be causing a problem. Because why? Are we out of alignment with the... I don't know. I actually don't really know. Could walk through it with the camera being 2, the camera counter. And then see what the difference kind of looks like. I don't remember enough about that code off the top of my head to just kind of walk through it right now. It's going to be easier to just kind of step through it. So I want to, let's see, skip scroll process is, I think, oh, that's interesting. So it doesn't increment the scroll counter, but it still checks the objects. And then checks to see, oh, maybe that's why. We're subtracting interesting. Okay, let's step through this because I clearly did not remember this as well as I thought I did. Okay, so we increment the counter, we compare it. It's not equal, so we are going to skip changing scroll Y. So then we're going to jump to this skip scroll process because we're not scrolling. So we're going to check for enemy objects. So we didn't increment scroll counter, so the value is 7. So we check to see if we're at a position where we need to load the enemy. We are not. We are done with objects. We're going to load the scroll counter. It's not equal to 8, so we are going to jump to skip row process here, and then we check if the camera is at 0, which it is. So if the, wait. Check if camera hit Y position 0 to switch repeat scroll. Y position. Oh, but Y position plus 1 is not, right? Branch if equal. To initialize sprites. So it basically skipped everything about processing the map, and we're clearing out our sprite memory to prepare it for our entities. And then we're going out to do our controller checks. Okay, so that is pretty straightforward. So if we change that value now to 1, we actually do end up doing a lot more. I want to see what that is. Okay, so we increment the counter. So now we reset the counter, we decrement scroll Y, which means that we are at 0. It didn't scroll past the edge of the screen. So then it decrements the world position. Alright, so then it checks the background mode and it goes to process map mode. We have the scroll counter, which we don't skip now. And that goes to 8. There's no, I don't care about the objects right now. So now we check the counter, it's 8, so we increment to the next meta tile sub row. And all of this is stuff that should happen anyway, but the problem is what? The problem is that when we came in when it was just 1, when it was 2, we incremented the camera counter. It was not set, it wasn't the speed, so we jumped over we went right to skip scroll process, right? So then we check the objects, which we don't care about. We increment the scroll counter to 7. Or sorry, we increment the scroll counter to 8. Didn't we? Or no, we didn't. We incremented it to... It was 7, and we incremented it to 8 here, so it did... I'm confused. When it was 2, we did this, and it didn't equal it, so we went to skip scroll process, and then skip scroll process just processes these objects. We incremented the scroll counter from 7 to 8, so we still did this. But we did this while the position of scroll Y was 0 versus FF. And the fact that that's FF coming in means that we process the scroll swap to move it to the bottom of the next name table. And we do a swap of this meta tile flag thing. But we really don't want it to do... So it's almost like we have to run through this once to set up the meta tile stuff. What's 7E? 126. And then we subtract 2 because we're moving up to the next metatile row. Metatile sub-row is A9. Okay. So and then we're checking M-tile Y against FE, meaning we've gone off the edge of the metatile, which we wouldn't have. At least not yet. Right? Oh no, the value is 0. Okay, because we're at the top of the metatile. I was looking at the memory address. That's what I was looking at. Huh. So we are scrolling off the edge, which means we need to get to the next metatile row. So yeah, so it's like the fact that we came in here once before we actually changed the position of the scrolling set us up in a way that we are now ready to update that row once it's time to do it. But because of the change to the count of 1 from a value that's not, greater than 1, we are not set up properly to handle that. So that sucks because it's kind of a weird way to prime the information to be ready. So we actually kind of want to do the opposite here, where if we're forcing the row load, we want to skip the camera count, the scroll Y decrement. So it's more like branch if let's see, so if it's 0, we'll skip this. Otherwise, we want to load A with 0 and store it in force row load because we don't want to do this again, and then we want to jump to skip scroll process. Right, so we want to say let's force it to process 1 frame, and then after that we will just process the camera counter normally, and I think that will fix it, because what we were doing before with the force row load was just toggling the the scroll swap that happens when you get off the edge of the name table, and you have to go from being in this name table to being in this name table to being in this name table in terms of the scrolling position, which is important, but not what we were after. I don't know that I need these breakpoints right now. Oh, what the hell, man. Oh. Okay, wait, did it worked that time, but did it actually work, or... Whoa, okay. I'm confused, because it did work fine. Let's just make sure. Is that messin being goofy? Is it a reset bug? Like if I just reload the ROM, it's fine? No. Power cycle. Okay, so it's a bug in reset. So for some reason, something in the RAM. Wait, why is that? Why does that work sometimes? That is bizarre. Huh. What is with the timing, though? Like, what? Something is... I'm resetting this because I want to see if I can predictably or reliably predict... Get out of here. What's triggering it to work sometimes. That is weird. I mean, it's mostly not working. But when it does, it's fine. So why? Yeah, see, that time it worked. I mean, there's the issue with the ship and stuff, but that's I'm less concerned that why is the scrolling behaving unpredictably like that? Force row load, branch of equal. We need to do this. I can just decrement this. What? Stop that. Okay, you can just decrement that. And that will make it 0, and then we won't come in here anymore. Oh, wait a minute. Was that like that? It was like that. I don't know. I don't know what that will do. I don't know that the assembler actually... Did it not actually build and I just didn't realize it? Oh yeah, it didn't actually build. So the problem was I wasn't using the change here. Alright. Well, that was a waste of time. Sorry, everybody. There we go. I mean, and so what's happening is we're sacrificing one frame of scrolling to get that set up. But that seems like a lot simpler fix than refactoring all that code. Now, again, these things look like they're floating in space because of the speed that they're moving at. It's 1-to-1, so that's not going to work. So if we increase their speed, they should now start to look like they're actually flying again. Cool. So now, I wonder if what we're running into is a bug where the entity is being overwritten by some sort of data. That's causing it to mess with its position. I don't know why the ship is... Oh, that could be because of... I can't fire anymore? I can fire now. When do I lose the ability to do that? Or maybe I can fire, it's just that we have no more sprites because of weird bugs. Maybe it's time to break out the Lua script for the entities. Where was that? We haven't looked at that in a long time. Script window. Alright, so we gotta look because this is probably not working correctly because we've updated the entity definition a little bit. So let's take a look at what we've got here. We've got let's start with the player. See what's going on with this. Where's the debugger? So what this was, it was looking at the code and looking at memory and rendering why isn't that working? It was rendering the state of the entities loaded in memory on top of the game. But I am drawing a blank here on... Oh, it's objects, I think, because we separated into objects and, yeah, objects and projectiles. So let's see, why are you not drawing? There we go. So player. read at 500. We have the X position and then the Y position. Oh. So there's the Y position scrolling happily. The X position should not be... Oh, it's because we're doing all this stuff. We were doing, so I forget what we were even looking at there and why we were manipulating that. Okay, so now we're getting an actual view of the X and Y value correctly. Although that is reading, what is that reading? Is that reading, that's reading a word. That's not the right word to be reading. That is a correct word to be reading. So let's run that again. Hello. Read byte. It's not read byte. Is it just read? Okay. So we've got our first byte, which is the X, the second byte, which is the Y, and then a word, which is the Y world position. So that is at 500, but we're doing... I think we were testing to see if it should increment the scroll at this when I last used this. It was kind of just a true or false for that. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Ah, much better. So you can see that as I scroll up and down, the Y position, this is just the position on the screen. This is the position in the world or the map. I wonder if we're not... So the question is now, how are we subtracting from Y world position? Because I think that that's a fixed decrement. Really? Is it in player? Might be in player. That would make sense to some extent. Okay, so we're loading it and then we are subtracting 1 from it. Now we're subtracting 1 from it. And the screen is moving. Oh, does this have a timer also? Load it. Oh, that's for shooting stuff. Okay. So we are loading the world position. We're decrementing it. We're subtracting 1 and then potentially subtracting from the Y world position plus 1. And then we offset the position. We calculate our screen position based on the offset in the world. That makes sense. It could just be the transition over to repeat scroll mode. because I haven't touched that in a long time. So load that, and it with 7. And if it's not 8, so that was it, we're doing the same thing. We're comparing it to see if it's 8, except we're doing it with an and instead of a compare. But if it's not 8, then we are skipping the process. Otherwise, we want to set meta tile flag to 2. Flag to 2. I forget what that actually means at this point, but let's see. We look up our meta tile. This is our background meta tile. And then we shift it, and then we grab what we need to grab. I mean, I don't remember. I don't remember this doing all that much, that this would be a problem. It's like somehow though the repeat scroll mode is getting like bogged down in where it's not actually scrolling. I wonder if it's updating the name table. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at if it's updating the name table even though it's not actually scrolling the background. That would be a better scenario to this than not. We obviously have the problem of that flickering being broken. We'll worry about that later. I gotta turn on the Lua to see. So once we get close to the bottom, or to the top of the map, I should say, that's when we start seeing this problem. Let's take a look at the name table. No, it's not updating. It's not updating until we actually see it updating. So how is that scroll? That scrolling continues until... Oh, right. I remember this. So what happens is when the Y world position, or when the camera gets to a point where there's nothing left in the map, it resets the world position to reflect how long we want it to scroll for. But it's like we're in this weird limbo position where we're changing the world position but not the camera position. So why would that be? Populate single tile. Process repeat scroll mode. Let's do a quick check of something else. Does this work if we go back to scrolling by 2? Or scrolling every 2 frames instead of every 1 frame. Then we'll know if it was just broken. I think it was just broken, but we'll know if it's just broken or if it's something related to scrolling too fast for the code, and then the code is not handling that correctly. I don't see a debugger open. Why is this at a breakpoint? Okay. Debugger. Okay, let's Let's make sure that the ROM is loaded. Why does it think a debugger is open? Is there a debugger open? There's this script window open. All right, I guess I got to keep a debugger window open to do this. So this is scrolling by 2s now. So let's slow down as we get closer to the edge here. This might be a similar thing where it is expecting a little bit of a gap between swapping because of the way it was implemented originally, and then as a result of that, it's not quite ready when we start moving or trying to move the camera, even though it should be. No, okay, it's just broken. One interesting thing is you can see that once the Y world position matches the Y position, that's because the camera has hit the top of the map. And so at that point, we swap to what should be repeat scroll mode, which means that we should be seeing the camera changing too. So let's throw the camera in, which is something we had before. It's fixed at 2. Oh, no, it's not fixed at 2. It's just my code is wrong. Let's look at the camera. No? No? What? There's camera counter. There's something called camera, size of camera. So, what don't you like? Invalid expression. Okay, well, what does the camera type look like? Because I don't remember. It is just the word Y position. But I need to know where it is in memory. Oh, 6C. That's weird that I couldn't find it. So we're close, but not quite. So this is the camera position, again, relative to the map. You can see it's close to what the player position is, but the player position is offset by the actual position on the screen. How is this decrementing? By 1? It is. Okay. So that's going down by 1 pixel every time. Let's see what happens when we hit the top of the map. So we should see the camera go to 0. And then that would swap us to repeat scroll mode. I wonder... Ooh. Yeah, see, that's what's happening. We go to 721, but then everything stops and the camera stops moving. So let's see, 721 in decimal is 2D1. So let's see, I'm sure I'm probably hard coding. Yep, there it is. So I'm loading, swap to repeat scroll mode. I'm loading this in. we're setting up that. We're doing this. Okay. Oh. You see what we're doing? We're resetting the camera counter to the value -1 that we had before. So what we want to do is we actually want to load this and then subtract 1. Because what's happening is we're loading in the value 7, expecting to increment it to 8 and then start processing. But what's instead happening is we're loading in the value 7 and then we're incrementing all the way until we get to the value 255, and then we scroll back around to 0, and then we hit 1, and then we start processing the camera. So it's a bug where no matter what value you use, if it wasn't 8, it would not have worked. So now that we're using this constant, that shouldn't be a problem going forward if we want to change that speed to literally whatever we need it to be, provided that the rest of the code works. We can speed up the emulation again. I guess we can probably move these up. All right, so we're just waiting for the camera to hit the top of the map. One thing that we used to do with the map is, while we were messing around with this, was we'd put a row of particular tiles up at the top so that you knew you were hitting it. You can probably do the same thing just to confirm that everything is lining up. There we go. See, it transitioned correctly. Now the problem is with these attributes. I'm not concerned about that right now. That's the least of my worries with everything else that we're working on here. So we've got this. Let's just make sure. See, and we're probably hitting the same exact thing here, where it's resetting the counter to force a load of the next row, and that's getting messed up. All right, so that's kind of like our barrier row, just to prove that we're getting to the end. Let me re-export that. Come on. All right, let's remake that. Once we fix the other problem with the scrolling, I think I'm going to wrap here, because we got this working a little bit better. I'm pretty tired. I don't want to overdo it here. I'll see if I can get a stream in on Thursday too, since it's been a little while. Where's the Lua code? I just want to confirm that we are in fact reaching the end of the map before I fix the other problem, which is I'm like 99% sure it's the same thing. We're resetting the camera counter to 7 instead of to, you know, whatever the camera counter max value is, -1, which is what we want it to be. And we're going to hit repeat scroll mode now. Cool. And you can see we did actually hit those tiles. It's not updating. That looks cool, but it's not but it is not updating the repeat scroll mode properly here, based on the way it should be. All right, so let's fix the other problem here. where we are loading it with 7. Are we not doing that? Oh, I would have bet money on that. Aha, we are. I don't. Oh, was I doing 7 like that? I don't know. Anyway. There we go. That should fix that. So let's build. Reload the ROM. That might actually fix the problem we have with the offset too when we reload the map. For scroll, here I'm going to close this and rerun this because once you open the debugger, the emulator runs slower, especially if you want to speed up the emulation. It hits a certain limit, I think, because the debugger gets activated, and that makes it too. It can't deactivate that part at that point. It's still not as fast as I maybe want it to be, but that's definitely faster than it has been. Although actually I think this is scrolling at 2 and not at 1. So we can change that, and then maybe that's fine. Because then it's scrolling every other frame right now instead of every frame. Okay, so this is still loading. That just might be a bug with the way that we're calculating the offset into the map data. Since we did change that pretty substantially, I'm not super worried about that. Right, this is still... Where's the camera counter speed thingy? Yeah, oh, so we're still doing 2. So it should be even faster and smoother now. Yeah, that's a pretty decent clip. I don't know if that's still... I'm not sure if that's fast enough still. So I'm envisioning that the ship is going to come out of like a hangar at the bottom of the screen. And it's going to be over the water, and it's going to be scrolling pretty quick. There'll be a there's going to be like a splashing effect around the ship to kind of give that sense of it being low to the ground, low to the water. And then what we'll do is as the level progresses, the ship's shadow will shift and will slow down the scroll speed, and it will give the impression of being higher up. And then obviously the tiles we'll use as you progress when that happens will also reflect things as if from higher up above. So you can see, actually, how far off are we here? Let's see, 1 metatile, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're off by 9 metatiles. Let's see if we can correct that. Swap to map. So we're switching to map mode. We're resetting this stuff. We're calling load level. Oh, okay. So, yeah. So we're calling load level in a special way where we're saying don't force yourself to overwrite the whole screen, but instead set yourself to start drawing the next row in the screen for the bottommost row of the map. And so what it does is we're here. Excuse me. Load full screen is what we do initially when we load the map. I wonder if we're doing some stuff to reset the memory that we're missing out on if we branch if equal to load full screen. Otherwise, oh, are we doing, so we're doing some math here and then we're returning. All right, well, you know what, let's look at this next time, because I think this is a good place to continue on next time. And I'll have some more things that we can implement on the NES side. Maybe we can start messing around with the shadow stuff, or get the scrolling even faster. I'm not sure. That was a decent. I felt like that was actually a relatively decent speed. Part of me wants it to go much faster and start in like almost like repeat scroll mode, just to give you a long intro over the water before going into a map. We gotta fix this flickering bug that's caused by having too many sprites on screen at once also. So that'll be something to look into. Where's my notes here? Swapping out of repeat scroll mode and calling load level results in the map being loaded offset by 9 metatiles, or at least that's what it seems like the count. This is like a rough count. So anyway, as always, thank you for watching. Thanks for joining live here for those of you that did. And if you want to reach me, I'm on Twitter at Clearvis. I'm in Video Game Sage in the Discord and the Brewery channel. I am on the NES Dev Discord as well. I am on both of those, either as Zelius or Clearvis. I don't remember. Video Game Sage is Zelius, Xelius. That's also my email, zelius@gmail.com. On Video Game Sage, on NES Dev, I believe it's Clearvis, but you can reach me at either of those, or email me, or comment on the video in the description, below the description on YouTube after I post this. I'm happy to help. A number of people have, reached out for help, and I do my best to try and get back in a timely fashion. I do have a Patreon and a Buy Me a Coffee if you're so interested. People ask about that rather frequently, and I will be getting to the 0 pages at some point. I know people really like those videos. Somebody asked if I have thought about even doing the next video, and when I said yes every day, that was not a lie or a joke. That is true. I do think about those videos almost every day. It's just there's a lot of work that goes into them, so they take a while to do, and it's been hard for me to find that time to produce something that's that heavily edited, for in my spare time. So anyway, thanks again. Hope to see you Thursday, and have a good night. Take care.